Welcome back to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference, empowering the good, and we love talking about literacy. We're honored to be joined by James Pond. He's the president of the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation. How are you doing, James?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's start with some history and context for the statewide effort, and then we'll talk about all the different programs and the good you do. So give us a little history lesson.
Yeah, so Governor's Early Literacy Foundation, our mission really is to strengthen early literacy in Tennessee. And so we were formed in 2004, and this was really in response to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library had just started expanding within the state and was really looking for how do they grow. At the same time, Governor Bredeson's administration was really looking at how do we begin to meet the needs of our earliest citizens from birth to 5 years old. They were really looking at how do we get literacy into the hands of young children and start preparing them for kindergarten. So our foundation was formed, and our responsibility was to grow the Imagination Library statewide. So by 2006, we had grown it to all 95 counties where every child was eligible to start receiving this program. And then over the years, we moved from 30% of age eligible children all the way to where we currently are, which was we serve just over 70% of the state's eligible population of birth to 5 kids. But in 2019, after being around for 15 years, our board was asking, where's this foundation going in the next 15 years? And I came on at that time, traveled around the state, and really started listening to what was happening around early literacy. How were people looking at it, defining it, looking for opportunities? And we walked away from that experience with a huge opportunity to serve the needs of our state in a more meaningful way. So we expanded our programs. We now have 5 core programs and some additional work that we're doing. But now we are serving almost 500,000 kids. And, when you look at the different opportunities, we're now serving kindergarten to 3rd grade students, working with our state parks on Storybook Trails, which are outdoor reading experiences, book buses, working with school districts and various entities across our state to create greater access to literacy. And then working with our caregivers. There was a huge opportunity as we look across the state for parents, grandparents, and other caregivers to provide them with resources so that they can help their children on their reading and literacy journey.
We'll definitely dive in deeper on some of those programs, just like you highlighted. I think it goes without saying when you talk about the importance of literacy, but I want you to articulate kind of where we are, where we should be, kind of give us some of the stats when you talk about literacy and why it's so important to the future of our individuals, for our youth, our families, our leaders, but our state and our nation as well. Talk about the importance of focusing on literacy.
Yeah, and it's important to know too, Tennessee historically has always been an education leader. We used to be known as the education state. And so there's an enormous opportunity for Tennessee to really kind of rise back to that moniker and to be known as the state that values literacy and has a culture of reading. But if you look at where we are currently, our statewide reading proficiency is about 35% statewide. And that is extremely low, and that means that our 3rd graders going into 4th grade have about 1/3 of them have reading proficiency that prepares them for the rest of their journey. And that benchmark is so important because it indicates academic success. So if a child is not doing well by 3rd grade reading, they're going to struggle with reading in 8th grade and probably struggle in math. That has implications for high school graduation, post-secondary engagement, and then ultimately, do we have a prepared workforce here in Tennessee? So specifically here in Davidson County, we're at about 22%. Some counties are even lower than that. So we've really got an opportunity to lean in and help our students read better. And of course, everyone has talked about the impact of COVID. And while there was some learning loss that I think obviously happened as a result, COVID really, I think, exposed some of the underlying issues where we're now recognizing the kinds of strategies that we can employ that will better help our students get back on track and become proficient readers at grade level, ready to engage their academic journey.
Give us one example when you talk about COVID and lessons learned. Give us one example of what that looks like.
Yeah, one of the things that we realized is that there is an importance to having high quality literacy resources in the home. And so when COVID happened, we were able to continue the Imagination Library without any kind of breaks or stops. So we kept serving kids as we always had for the past 15 years. But in our kindergarten to third grade students, we immediately recognized that these were kids that were going to be out of the classroom. And whether they were engaged in public school online, or if they had gone into a homeschool environment, some kind of a co-op or another learning environment, we had no idea what resources they had to bear. And we realized there was an enormous opportunity to infuse those families with those reading literacy resources. And so we just went to work. So we were the first ones to work with Scholastic on an at-home delivery. They had never done that before. And we did that on a statewide basis in response to COVID. And what we heard back from parents and teachers was that was a vital resource that was necessary and something that they wanted to continue to do to provide kids with those high quality reading materials and resources.
Let's go ahead and dive in. You mentioned Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, and that's a collaborative opportunity as well on your end, working with different nonprofits and organizations across the state of Tennessee. So go ahead and dive in deeper on how the program works.
Yeah, it's great. I appreciate that question. I think most Tennesseans don't recognize how this program works. And we say at our foundation that the Imagination Library is a program that is for Tennesseans by Tennesseans. So the way that this works is that Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, run by the Dollywood Foundation, they go through the process of selecting really great high quality books, oftentimes that parents would never think of for their children. They go through a very rigorous selection process, and those books are available to every child birth to 5, one book a month at no cost to families. But the way that this program works is that our foundation, Governor's Early Literacy Foundation, manages half of the cost of those books. And then each individual county has a nonprofit entity that works in that county that manages the other half of the grant. So it's paid for 50% by our foundation, 50% by that individual county. So if you're living in, Blount County or Coffee County, you have a nonprofit entity, whether that's the Chamber of Commerce, United Way, or another nonprofit that manages that other half of that grant and manages the book order system to make sure that children are enrolled and getting their books every month.
You mentioned the Storybook Trails as well, and being outside and the power of being in the environment, but dive in a little deeper on that one.
Yeah, so initially we had looked at working with state parks. They had come to us and said, "Hey, we've heard about these trails that you can actually put books on. Is there an opportunity for us to do that?" So we explored that with them. We did a couple of parks, and we realized, wow, there's a really neat opportunity here to create kind of a win-win. One, it's bringing families to our state parks, which are beautiful and amazing, but also creating an outdoor reading environment where it's promoting books, it's promoting children to read. And then what happened is during COVID, we recognized there was an enormous opportunity to create outdoor opportunities for families to get outdoors, get some fresh air, and read a book together. So we're currently in about 36 parks across the state. We've been asked by a lot of local parks, city parks, and greenways if we can put Storybook Trails there. So we've continued to grow that program out and expand it. If folks are interested, I'd encourage them to reach out to us. We can get you some more information on what that looks like. But it's a great opportunity to just reinforce that culture of reading here in Tennessee.
You also mentioned the book buses, so give us some illustration on that.
Yeah, we started in about 2015 with school districts that were looking for what can we do during the summers that would really encourage reading and bring resources to some of our harder to reach communities. So we had done some seed funding and worked with them on developing a book bus program. And as we came into 2019 and I started, we realized there was this opportunity to really expand that program. And so we've started working with school districts and other nonprofits. So we've been approached by a number of different folks who recognized that there were a number of communities within their county that they could not access either during the school year or during the summer. So we wanted to create kind of a mobile library to really get out there and provide those resources either over the summer or various points during the year when children were not in the classroom. And then each county sort of developed its own flavor for how they wanted to use the programming and or the bus itself. So what we see is partnerships with various food programs so that children and families are also getting access to free lunch programs or food delivery programs, connecting it to healthcare. So we've done work with Delta Dental where we've taken dental hygiene materials to various families, or connected it to a healthcare provider where they'll bring someone out and do healthcare screenings or provide information to communities about resources that are available to them. So it's really become an empowering element. And we're now at about 35, 36 buses and continuing to grow that out statewide. So folks should look in their local communities, see if a book bus is out there, and we encourage people to go and visit those. Oftentimes they're providing forever books so children can actually pick up a book and take it home and add it to their home library. Or in some cases, they're connected to school libraries, and so children can actually check out books and then return them to school when they return in the fall.
You also mentioned the caregivers and creating book libraries at home, which is so important. Talk about the importance of that, because I think one of the things that's kind of a hidden layer to this is, especially for those who English is a second language, when you talk about even the children reading together, but almost the reverse, where the children are reading the books and the adults are kind of learning through. There's a lot of layers to what you're doing, and the ripple effect that it creates, not only for the youth and the child, but for the family, the generational change as well. Kind of carry that forward into the importance of having the books in the home with the home library.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research out there. One of the most encouraging ones that we've seen was some recent research, which we're calling the Newman article. And it really looks at sort of two verticals. And one of those is how many books are in the home as opposed to how much time that child spends reading. And what we found really fascinating was they looked at children who had less than 25 books in the home, less than 50 books in the home, and then either 100 or more books in the home, and then compared that to 10 minutes of reading, half an hour of reading, or an hour or more of reading. And what they found was it was more important, the number of books that were in the home had a higher influence on a child's ability and proficiency in reading rather than the amount of time spent reading. And so that's encouraging for us, because what we realize is that the more books that we can place in that home creates a culture of reading where families then are seeing books on a regular basis, engaging with those books, and then we're hoping that then they're reading those books and building proficiency. And so that's one of the more encouraging pieces. There's other research that looks at, if we can just get 60 to 80 books in a child's home, that we will see that child have fewer suspension rates, better attendance rates in school, stronger socialization, and then more familiarity with, letters, sounds, and words as they come into kindergarten for those first years of elementary school.
Yeah, the power of books, the power of literacy, but also the power of bringing families together and
Absolutely.
reading together. Carry that into how can we help? How can the community help your efforts?
Yeah, we are powered by partnership, and so we work with everyone from our local nonprofits to school districts to parks, and our focus is really on engaging with government, both state and local government, to make them aware of the services and programs that we're providing, working with corporate partners to build those financial resources that we need to continue providing those programs, as well as really promoting in their county a culture of reading and really being responsive to the needs of children and families. And then also, we're looking to engage with individual donors. If there's folks out there that are wondering, how can I get engaged financially? Love to talk to them about opportunities and what's happening at our foundation that they could get engaged with.
Go ahead and talk about website, social media. Where do we go to reach out to learn more about the Governor's Early Literacy Foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. You can look us up at governorsfoundation.org. You can find us on Facebook at Gov Early Literacy TN. Our Twitter handle is Governor Literacy TN. And if you go to our website, go to our contact page, there's lots of information that you can find on the website, but contact us if you need something more specific. we're really looking to expand these programs. Our Imagination Library, we're currently serving about 286,000 children each month. And in our K-3 program, we're now working upwards of about 300,000 children a year, and really looking at how can we continue to grow those programs out and invest in children and families to help them on that literacy journey to become lifelong learners.
Absolutely. The website again is governorsfoundation.org. So governorsfoundation.org. And greatly appreciate all the work you and your amazing team are doing, James. Thank you for coming on the show.
Hey, absolutely appreciate it. Thank you so much.